In the year of 1947, India and Pakistan became dominions, partially gaining their independence. Right after that, they had their first war over Kashmir, but the conflict could have escalated into a total war, including East Pakistan, Hyderabad and other minor states, which has the potential to reshape how the Cold War in Asia plays out. This is the premise of today's video. As to be neutral and balanced, I would show you two endings, one where Pakistan wins and another where India is victorious. Let me show you what I came up with. First up, I want to give you some context regarding the partition of the British Raj and why it resulted in a war right after both countries had gained their independence. After the Second World War, Great Britain was broke economically, so they couldn't retain their empire any longer, which also extended to France, Belgium and the Netherlands. The British decided to peacefully decolonize, unlike France, which tried to retain Algeria, and the Dutch who tried to retain Indonesia. The Brits realized that it would be more economically viable to give their colonies independence and to trade with them. British India was among the first colonies to be promised independence. The English wanted the Raj to remain united, while the Muslim League opposed this, demanding their own state in the Muslim majority regions. This is because they were distrustful of the Hindus and the Muslims didn't want to become second-class citizens, considering the overwhelming Hindu majority in the unified Raj. As British Raj was going to be partitioned into India and Pakistan, the question of where to draw the lines came up. The two states of Punjab and Bengal were difficult to divide, as Punjab was about 55.7% Muslim and Bengal was about 54.4% Muslim. Despite the Muslim majority in both states, they saw a strong Hindu minority, and it wouldn't be fair for the Hindus for these lands of over 88 million people to simply go to Pakistan. As such, the Radcliffe Line divided these two states more fairly, but this was also controversial. The religious population of Punjab was distributed so chaotically that millions were still not in their respective countries after the partition. Neither Pakistan nor India approved of the line, each claiming more, but this was the best that Cyril Radcliffe could do. The challenge was not only to divide these two regions fairly, but also not to cut through roads and railroads, communication, irrigation systems, electric power systems, and even individual land holdings. The common belief is that the Radcliffe Line was drawn by a random drunk European who didn't understand the local people, but the fact of the matter is that this was so complicated and this is the best that could be done. So when Pakistan and India gained their independence on the 14th and 15th of August 1947, they only actually controlled these lands. Notice how Bangladesh is part of Pakistan, where it was called East Pakistan. This video is uploaded exactly on these dates, so happy independence both to Pakistan and India. Here I want to show you something cool, which is these two coins that I have. The first one is from British India in the year of 1947, so literally a few months before the country ceased to exist, with King George VI on their back. The second coin is from Pakistan in 1948, right after their independence, and this was the first official Pakistani currency, and since Bangladesh was part of Pakistan then, this coin was also used there as well. Now going back to the video, the remaining territory is comprised of the princely states, which to put it simply were independent countries with their own rulers, customs and sometimes currencies, part of the British Raj. This is why India and Pakistan in the beginning looked like this. These were simply the territories where Britain had total control. All of these princely states, which were about 516 total, had three options presented to them. The first option was to join Pakistan, the second was to join India, and the third was to become independent. In late August of 1947, the subcontinent looked like this. As you can see, there are some states that had yet to pick a side, and this is really important as it was the catalyst for India and Pakistan to go to war 2 months and 8 days after them gaining independence. To the east, Manipur, Tripura and Sikkim had not yet been part of India. Manipur and Tripura had joined India in 1949 without a plebiscite or public consultation, so this was quite controversial. Sikkim was not a princely state, but rather a British protectorate, which lasted until 1975 as Indian protectorate, before being forced to join the country after a referendum orchestrated by India. In Pakistan there were some semi-independent states collaborating with Pakistan, and eventually all of these joined Pakistan. These are the Khanate of Kawat, Wasbela, Makran and Karan, who only officially joined the country in 1955. To the north, Chitral joined Pakistan a bit after the country was formed, but Dir and Swat joined the country in 1969. This is what Pakistan actually looked like in the beginning of the war, having little direct control over all of these princely states I just mentioned, which is important to remember for the conflict that is about to unfold. In the center of India there were 4 states that had not yet picked a side. These were Hyderabad, Bhopal, Pipwada and Junagadh. All of these states were overwhelmingly Hindu majority, with Hyderabad being about 85% Hindu and 15% Muslim, while Junagadh was about 80% Hindu and 20% Muslim. So why didn't these states join India right away? Well, for the case of Pipwada, the smallest and most insignificant one, as their population was about 11,000, for them it was pure negligence, as the state was so small that they delayed accession, not having anybody to negotiate on behalf of them. Eventually they joined India peacefully. Now the rest of the states had a different problem. Let me explain this with a skit. Hey Junagadh, wouldn't it be crazy cool if you guys joined us? Nah bro, I'm good. Okay, I bet you will change your mind later. Hey Hyderabad, you have a population of 16 million people who are 85% Hindus, so surely you would like to join us, right? Nah bro, I'm good. What? So the reason why these three states didn't join India right away, despite them having overwhelming Hindu majority, is because of their rulers who are all Muslims. The case of Hyderabad is especially interesting, as they were ruled by Osman Ali Khan, who is credited as being the richest man in the world at the time. He preferred Pakistan over India, but for the two to unite was impossible, so independence was chosen by Hyderabad. Osman Ali Khan had his own army, currency and radio stations, so he opposed joining India, where he would lose all of his privileges, and even if he was allowed to remain as the ruler of Hyderabad, he would lose direct control over taxes, customs and trade. To put it simply, Hyderabad, or more so accurately, the ruler wanted independence. Bhopal was pretty much in a similar position as well. Junagadh is the most interesting out of the bunch. Despite them being 80% Hindu, their Muslim ruler, Muhammad Mahabad Khan III, decided to join Pakistan. This caused an outrage and for India to blockade and later invade the country, where in February of 1948 a plebiscite was held where 99.95% of the population voted to join India. Seems legit. Now here is a fun fact. Pakistan still claims this territory and the government still draws Junagadh as part of Pakistan, despite never really controlling it. Now the final and most important state that hadn't yet decided whether they should join India or Pakistan is of course the one and only Jammu and Kashmir, which from now on I would simply call Kashmir. The whole region is about 77% Muslim, giving them a strong majority. The ruler however was Hindu and didn't want to join Pakistan unlike his people. Kashmir declared independence, not wanting to risk a war over this issue. At this point, Kashmir and Junagadh were the two most important states, being the reason for the war to start. They were basically the opposite of each other. Kashmir was about 80% Muslim, ruled by a Hindu who wanted independence. Junagadh was about 80% Hindu, ruled by a Muslim and wanted to join Pakistan. Alright, now with the context out of the way, what's so controversial here you may ask? Oh boy, you're in for a really interesting scenario. Pakistan called out the hypocrisy of India, with them annexing the Hindu majority Junagadh, but not allowing Pakistan to take the Muslim majority Kashmir. Again, the two states were in a very similar position, so if India is allowed to take the state with 80% of their religious people, shouldn't Pakistan be allowed to do the same? While all of this was ongoing, the situation in Kashmir on the ground was very tense. Both Hindus and Muslims started fighting each other, and the situation got out of hand. Kashmir was in an open revolt. As to preserve peace, Pakistan embargoed Kashmir temporarily, attempting to exert pressure and stop the fighting, but this didn't work. The story of how this war started has two versions. The first one is the Pakistani version, where they claim that in response to violence against Muslims in Kashmir, Pashtun-speaking tribes rebelled to defend the Muslims from the Hindu oppressors. The second version is by India, who claims that these rebels were actually funded and initiated by Pakistan under Operation Gulmarg, where they would occupy key parts of Kashmir, then for Pakistan to send in their army to pacify and annex Kashmir. This is why it's so difficult to say who started the conflict. Was it Pakistan by arming the rebels, or was it India for sending help to Kashmir in exchange for annexation? Before I split the scenario into two parts, I want to give you some more context regarding the armies of India and Pakistan, as both were one single country just 2 months and 8 days prior, so their armed forces were chaotic and not ready to fight a war amongst each other. Basically, the Independence of India Act of 1947 stated that India should get 2/3 of the army, while Pakistan gets the remaining 1/3. This gave Pakistan about 150,000 soldiers, while India would get 300,000. The matter was also extended to the British Raj assets. For example, the cash reserves were supposed to be split among similar lines. Pakistan was supposed to get 750 million rupees, but now with the outbreak of the war, India didn't give them the remaining 550 million rupees right away, antagonizing Pakistan further. As a curious fact, Mahatma Gandhi opposed this and the war in general, so in his usual character, he fasted to protest this. He managed to convince India to give the money to Pakistan during wartime, which was seen by Hindu extremists as funding the enemy. They began to see Gandhi as appeasing the Muslims in Pakistan, and even helping Pakistan while Indian soldiers were dying in Kashmir. This directly led to his assassination by a Hindu extremist. The First Kashmir War was actually mostly contained to the region. Hyderabad was annexed in just 5 days by India with a successful Operation Polo, while East Pakistan didn't participate in the conflict. But what if all of this escalated into total war between the two sides, where fighting would be extended everywhere, not just in Kashmir? This could see Hyderabad, Junagadh and Bhopal to join the Pakistani side of the conflict, with the goal either to retain their independence for the case of Hyderabad or to join Pakistan, like what the rulers of Junagadh and Bhopal wanted. Further, if this conflict were to escalate, East Pakistan would get directly involved, and they had claims on the whole of the Bengal territory. Basically, Bengal was split by the Radcliffe Line, where Hindus went to India and Muslims went to Pakistan, but they were one single ethnicity, and there were calls for East Pakistan to get the rest of Bengal, hence why this conflict could have expanded a lot. How this war escalates is difficult to say, but I think that Pakistan's proxy in Kashmir succeeding and taking the entire region could be the catalyst. Pakistan would annex Kashmir, which India wouldn't recognize due to the Kashmiri ruler stating that he wants to join India in exchange for a protection, so war would break out. Hyderabad would declare neutrality, but the Muslim part of the army, which is called the Razakars, would begin assaulting pro-Indian positions, which did happen in our own history. Junagadh formally declares war on India and is folded into Pakistan, which would now serve as a launching pad into the Gujarat province. Bhopal would be landlocked, but they can still cause trouble in central India, disrupting their supply lines. In the midst of the chaos, East Pakistan would open a second front as to gain the entirety of Bengal. Riots would break out in Calcutta, much like the Direct Action Day, but on a much larger scale. India would find itself fighting on 4 fronts. Now nearly the entire subcontinent is fighting a massive war. So now you know about all the context, the division of the Raj, the assets, the army, the princely states, and the beginning of the First Indo-Pakistani War. As I said, I want to give you 2 endings, one where India wins this total war and another where Pakistan is victorious. For the first ending, where India wins this total war, I want to state the importance of Kashmir and why India wanted it so badly, despite it being barely Hindu. As to simplify this, the region will serve as a shield, defending India from China, Central Asia and Pakistan. If India's rival of Pakistan were to get it instead, then the Pakistanis can harass India all they want, while the Indians wouldn't be able to strike and stop Pakistan. As such, Kashmir was vital for India's long-term defense. In our own history, this war was kind of won by India, as they got 2/3 of the province, with Pakistan getting the rest. But what if it went even better for India? The first way we can achieve this is for the 550 million rupees that India owed to Pakistan to not be given, despite the protests of Mahatma Gandhi. As they would be given during wartime, this bolstered the Pakistani economy noticeably, and this happening is not too unrealistic to consider, as here the circumstances would be a lot different. India is not just fighting over Kashmir, but with the entire Pakistan, which also controls Bangladesh. Sending forces to Pakistan during wartime wouldn't be popular at all in this alternate history. While this would strain the Pakistani economy, India can pull off another similar scheme, and this would be to advance into the Pakistani province of Bahawalpur. This is because the leader of Bahawalpur, which was Sheikh Muhammad Khan V, supported Pakistan greatly. He directly gave 70 million rupees to Pakistan and paid the salaries of all government departments for a couple of months. He also donated some of his personal properties to several universities and mosques. If you remember from earlier, India was supposed to give Pakistan 750 million rupees, but only gave them 200 million before the war had started. Now they would nationalize the rest of the 500 million rupees. What this means is that Bahawalpur would give Pakistan about 35% of what India gave to Pakistan, and this is a lot of money. If India manages to successfully invade Bahawalpur, capturing Sadiq Muhammad Khan V in the process, they can literally prevent 620 million rupees to make their way to the Pakistani economy, which would limit the extent of their war effort. Further, India historically performed well in Kashmir, and I see no reason for this not to happen here as well. After all, they got the majority of the army and most importantly the airplanes, giving them total air superiority, while Pakistan's army was worse off, and now their economy is near collapse as well. We can see the province of Gilgit-Baltistan to side with India, which would help the Hindus take the entirety of Kashmir. Historically, Gilgit-Baltistan was leased to the British, and the local British governor sided with Pakistan, and this region is still part of Pakistan even today. But had a few key events played out differently, Gilgit-Pakistan could have sided with India instead, which means that India has taken Kashmir and is now in a really defensible position. Also, can we relax for a second and just admire how beautiful this region actually is? I mean, look at that. I'm definitely adding Gilgit-Baltistan to my bucket list. Still, for India there would be 3 other main fronts to worry about. The one in Junagadh, the one in Hyderabad and one in Bengal. Bhopal I'll just ignore. India takes them directly, really quickly, case closed. The first front in Junagadh is the easiest to cover. India simply wins there and annexes the territory. As I mentioned in the context section of the video, the ruler voted to join Pakistan, but India simply refused this and invaded them, due to their Hindu majority, and easily succeeded in doing so. I can see this to happen over again in this alternate history, while the Pakistanis cannot really land there and support their claims, so they would get pushed out. Going over to the front in Hyderabad, earlier I mentioned Operation Polo, where India defeated and annexed them in just 5 days, while also fighting Pakistan. We have changed not a lot for this to be prevented, and while Hyderabad may resist for longer, their overwhelming Hindu population would overpower the Muslim militia, leading to another quick victory for India. The front in Bengal would be a little bit more difficult. We can see the Muslims to cut India in two and isolate the eastern provinces, but the fact is that East Pakistan didn't really support the conflict, nor the idea of unification the Bengali province, despite different religions. I think that at this point Pakistan would sue for peace, due to the dire situation of the economy. In the peace treaty, India annexes the entirety of Kashmir, Junagadh, Bhopal and Hyderabad. Them getting the province of Bahawalpur is also not out of the question. The northern part of East Pakistan would also be taken as well, as to protect the Indian eastern provinces and secure the key choke point. If we're really extreme, we could see India to push for a creation of Baluchistan, which is not too unrealistic, but also today in Pakistan there are revolts there trying to make this exact thing happen. And now these states were not part of Pakistan just yet, so they may choose to unite and go down their own separate path. This could be facilitated by an even more extreme idea for India to annex the Sindh province, giving them direct access to Baluchistan and cutting Pakistan off from the world's oceans. This idea would be very radical and too unrealistic to happen. Although there were 25% Hindus in the Sindh province, the major Pakistani port city of Karachi, which was also their capital city at the time, was located there. India annexing the Pakistani capital city would be a stretch, especially since Pakistan would have no other way to reach East Pakistan if this is the case. Just know that a more extreme variant of this peace treaty includes India getting the Sindh province and helping form Baluchistan as a puppet government. But now I would not do these unrealistic borders and go with the most reasonable option. So this is how the war goes. What is next? Does East Pakistan try to break free earlier? What would be the immediate changes in the Cold War in Asia, with India winning this war more decisively? First up, let me cover Pakistan. They would be absolutely humiliated. Muhammad Ali Jinnah was their first president, and he was not particularly healthy, and we could see his health to deteriorate faster than historically, which I think could lead to an earlier military coup, from which Pakistan was suffering for most of their history. Basically, Pakistan in this alternate history would be worse off economically, politically, militarily, everything. Going back to India, the government's popularity would be at an all-time high, as they would have practically secured the best possible outcome for them. Now, with their presence in Kashmir, they would be defended from attacks from China, Pakistan and Central Asia, keeping the core population safe. As a result of the Indian presence there, China might delay their annexation of Tibet in 1950, as it could start a diplomatic crisis with India, but I cannot really predict any of this in detail. The possibility of Tibet becoming an Indian protectorate is definitely higher than historically, but still not going to happen reliably, so China would get it inevitably. The 1962 Sino-Indian War could occur much earlier due to the improved Indian position. If China wins or loses, I don't think matters too much, as India's position is still greater than historically. Here is an interesting idea. Since India gets all of Kashmir in 1947 or 1948, this likely makes the region more peaceful as a whole, so India might not go to war with Pakistan in 1965 and 1971 over this exact region, as the Kashmir issue would have been resolved in India's favor already. If this is the case and there are no further wars between India and Pakistan, the two countries rushing to develop nuclear weapons could be butterflied away. Now I think that the Indians would still develop nukes as to deter China, especially if both of them went to war in around 1962, while the odds of Pakistan getting the dirty bomb would be lower than historically, but still they might choose to develop them. Also, let me get this quickly out of the way. India would successfully invade Portuguese Goa, Daman and Dui, much like how they did historically, with the French returning their port cities in India. No major war with NATO would be started over this. Going over to the 1970s, historically in 1971 Pakistan had a civil war after killing millions of Bengalis as to keep them in check. Now with Pakistan losing to India so decisively, they become a military dictatorship sooner. Historically, Urdu was the main language of Pakistan, despite Bengali being more widely spoken. The two portions of Pakistan had roughly the same population size, but the West wanted to dominate the East, rather than for them to be equal partners. This led to the 1971 Bangladesh Liberation War, which I can really see happening a lot sooner than historically. West Pakistan would become a dictatorship, while the East is likely still ruled by a civilian government, so the differences between the two sides would actually be greater than historically. India would still support Bangladesh and the war would be shorter and less deadly, with Bangladesh's independence being secured. So, regarding the Cold War, historically India was part of the non-aligned movement, not allying with the communists nor the capitalists. I can see the same to happen in this alternate history as well, but Pakistan is now more desperate, so I can see them becoming more communist aligned. Pakistan and China in this alternate history don't have any points of friction in the Kashmir, and further they may wish to partition it between themselves, opening up the door for an alliance. Further, historically China supported Pakistan in their war against Bangladesh, which I can see happening here as well. What I'm trying to say is that the communists in Pakistan would cooperate way more in this alternate history, while Pakistan would have a worse economy, so it could lead them to them becoming fully communist. If this were to happen, then when the Soviet Union invades Afghanistan, it would play out really differently than in our own history. This is because historically the Americans sent troops to Afghanistan via Pakistan. As Afghanistan holds Balochi and Pashtun people, and Pakistan being more socialist oriented, I think that we could see Pakistan to join this invasion of Afghanistan, where without American support, the Mujahideen fighting on all sides, they could be partitioned. Thus Al-Qaeda and the attacks to the World Trade Center could be better fight away. Reaching to the modern day, India would be much better and would surpass China in terms of population in about 2020, rather than 2023. Pakistan on the other hand would be devastated. They had suffered many military coups, a communist government, and now with the end of the Cold War, they could become much like Iran, having an Islamic revolution of their own, so being drastically worse off than today. Now let me go over to the second ending of this scenario, where Pakistan manages to defeat India in this total war in 1947. A good place to start to secure a Pakistani victory in Kashmir would be for them to occupy some key choke points. For example, there were plenty of roads and railroads from Kashmir to Pakistan, while there were just two linking Kashmir to India, and they were not suitable to be used during the winter. If Pakistan occupies these key roads, but also still gets the British in Gilgit-Baltistan on their side like historically, the Pakistani could quickly seize Kashmir without much resistance. Like historically, India would still pay Pakistan their fair share of the British Raj's assets, and Bahawalpur would still support the Pakistani economy. This could see Pakistan landing in Junagadh and expanding into the Gujarat province, throwing India into a state of panic. At around the same time, Mahatma Gandhi is still assassinated by Hindu extremists, which would decrease the Hindu unity. The state of Bhopal would be holding on and disrupting the Indian supply, allowing for Pakistan to capture many border territories in Punjab and Rajasthan. Hyderabad would actually prepare for total war with India, so when the invasion does come, they would not be just defeated in 5 days. Still, due to the overwhelming majority of the Hindu people there, we could see some local uprisings, but the leader of Osman Ali Khan would reiterate that he doesn't intend to join Pakistan, but rather for Hyderabad to remain independent, which likely reduces the revolt's intensity. All of this could start a heavy domino effect in the favor of Pakistan and against India. For example, the Tamils in South India may decide to declare independence, not wanting to be part of India while losing the war, which is a similar reason why Sri Lanka never joined India. Pakistan would support and encourage this, promising to recognize their independence, which I think is a real possibility to happen in these different conditions. The Kingdom of Mysore would also be proclaimed, along with many others in the area, who would leave India and declaring neutrality. Going over to Bengal, which is the final front to cover, there East Pakistan would still take the northern choke points and cut India in two. The morale of East Pakistan would be considerably low, but after India violently crushes the Muslim uprisings in Calcutta and other areas, it could motivate the Bengalis to fight and free their people from Indian oppression, blaming India for initiating ethnic cleansing. As such, I would eventually see West Bengal to be overrun, and at this point India may just sue for peace. In the peace treaty, Pakistan would gain all of Kashmir, while also taking parts of many border territories in Punjab and Rajasthan that had a sizable Muslim minority. Junagadh would also join Pakistan and expand into the Gujarat province, potentially establishing a land bridge between the two. East Pakistan would take the entirety of Bengal, this time not leaving India with a tiny strip of land to access their eastern provinces. The state of Bhopal would vote to join Pakistan, like they wanted in our own history, or more so their Muslim ruler, but they would be hundreds of miles away from the Pakistani mainland, so they would become an exclave. India's position would be really bad, but it would get even worse for them. The Kingdom of Sikkim would declare full independence, while Tripura would join East Pakistan as to maintain security, rather than be part of this Indian exclave. Manipur and Nagaland would join Myanmar, which was still under the British by this point. China would eventually invade India and annex Arak-Now Pradesh, with the rest of the Indian exclave becoming independent, being called the state of Assam, or they decide to join British Myanmar in a hope for a better future thereafter. Since Manipur and Nagaland went to Myanmar, we could see the Rakhine state to join East Pakistan in this land transfer. From the 1950s there was a growing secession movement and restoration of Arakan independence. Even today in the Myanmar civil war, this part wants independence, which is why I can see them joining East Pakistan right here and right now. India at this point would be doing really badly, but let me also cover the south. Hyderabad would gain their full independence, and I can see them attempting to get a coastline, which would be vital for their survival and prosperity. The Kingdom of Mysore would be declared, along with other minor kingdoms, so the eventual borders would look like this. What has happened with India losing this war is that they have lost about 50% of their territory, which may be a little bit extreme, but with Hyderabad, which was the size of Austria, and Kashmir being the size of Serbia breaking away, plus even more, it is not too insane to consider this being as a real possibility. So what happens next? First up, the possibility of India going communist has drastically increased. Historically they were left-leaning and closer to the Soviet Union rather than to the United States of America. What we could see happening here is for India's left-leaning parties to establish a popular front, which could take hold of the government, especially after Jawaharlal Nehru possibly resigns or is at least very unpopular and discredited. As a result of all of this, India might join the Eastern Bloc economically, accepting Soviet military advisors, technology and ideology. If this is the case, then all of the world all of a sudden becomes even more dangerous, but for the purpose of our own video, even more interesting. First up, India wouldn't dare to attack Portuguese Goa, Daman and Dui in this alternate history, especially if they are allied with the Soviet Union. This is because this move could see NATO and the Warsaw Pact going to war over some Portuguese colonies in India, which leads me to think that Portugal would get to keep these about for a decade longer, and even their colonial wars would be better fight away. Historically, when India took Goa, the Portuguese colonies in Africa started a rebellion, which lasted for about 15 years. Now with Goa not being taken, this could give the Portuguese more time to establish their plan of pluricontinentalism and the creation of the overseas provinces. There, Portugal gave full rights to their colonies, claiming they were an extension of the Portuguese mainland, allowing for free travel, education and so on. Antonio de Oliveira Salazar argued that Portugal was not a colonial empire, but rather a single nation state that existed across multiple continents. With this policy existing for longer and the colonies in Africa not rebelling just yet, this may actually work and Portugal would get to keep their empire for longer, which is a cool butterfly effect of Pakistan defeating India. Now going back to Pakistan, they would be in their best position ever. They start to present themselves as the liberators of the Muslims in Southern Asia and could attempt to lead the Islamic world, challenging Egypt or Saudi Arabia. Iran under the Shah would ally with Pakistan, but after the Iranian Revolution of 1979, which I think would still happen here, Iran and Pakistan would become rivals under the new Iranian government. Now let me tell you about Bangladesh. Even though Pakistan is doing insanely well in this alternate history, I think that Bangladesh would still break free. As I mentioned earlier, Urdu was the main official language of the country, despite there being more Bengal speakers, while the West was stealing resources from the East and generally neglecting them. Unless we make some serious unrealistic changes to this, Bangladesh would still declare independence. Perhaps as Pakistan is in a better position now, so there wouldn't be any military dictatorships, and democracy would continue to thrive there. If this is the case, then East Pakistan wouldn't break free, but if the military takes over in the West Pakistan, then we could see a Bangladeshi war of independence, which I think that they would still win. It's up for you which outcome you prefer. I would go with the more unrealistic option of Pakistan remaining a democracy and not neglecting the East, but helping them and making Bengali another official language of the country, which in turn keeps the nation united. Historically, Pakistan was leaning towards the US and was fearing communism, while India was quite socialist in our own history and joined the non-aligned movement. In this alternate history, India would become fully communist, so Pakistan may align themselves more with the Americans. America would begin to build up military bases in Pakistan, with the Soviet Union doing the same in India, so the Cold War has escalated more than historically. Also, as to get this out of the way, the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan would go even worse for them in this alternate history, with a stronger US-aligned Pakistan. The thing is that this proxy conflict could escalate into a world war, but I don't want to cover this possibility. With that, we would have reached the modern day. Pakistan is way out here, and their GDP per capita is at least double that of today, realistically being quadrupled, while their territory is far greater. India on the other hand would suffer greatly. They are already not doing well in terms of GDP per capita, and with communist rule and them losing about 50% of their land, they would surely be worse off today. Millions would be at risk of starvation, and India could become a failed state in the new millennium. These were the two endings. Subscribe if you enjoyed any of these. You can check out my video regarding China joining the Axis in the Second World War. I hope to see you there, and goodbye.